Uh, Hello, I'm Henry R. Mockingbird, your host with the mustache, and this show most certainly caused the great divide on the internet. So let's talk about the Netflix Avatar The Last Airbender series. Both critic and fan reception to the show has been mixed to negative. Some people love it, some people hate it, some people think it's worse than the M. Night Shyamalan movie, and to those people, I'm just like, eh? You serious? I mean, it's not perfect, but I wouldn't go that far. Let me answer some questions. Is it as good as the cartoon? No. Is it better than the live action movie? Held to the yes. Did I like and enjoy it? Also held to the yes. But before I start talking about this show, I want to talk about a certain controversy regarding the creators and them having creative differences with Netflix. Now, I'm just going to say it right off the bat. The cartoon is as close to a perfect show as you can get, and you're never going to top it. Hell, the creators couldn't even top themselves. They made The Legend of Korra, which, don't get me wrong, I do like The Legend of Korra, but I don't think it's as good as the original. And before you go for the whole, we're making a new show with Aang, Katara, Toph, and all the other characters as adults. Guys, I'm putting all my money on the table. Even that's probably not going to be as good as the original. If the creators couldn't do it, then Netflix sure as hell couldn't do it. Now, do not get me wrong, this show is not perfect, and even I have my own issues with it. So I'm going to talk about what I like about this show, and at the very end, I'm going to say what I didn't like. And by the way, there will be minor spoilers for both the cartoon and the live action show. And if you haven't seen either, then what are you doing watching this video? Go and watch both of them, and then come back and watch my review. Production values. What is the bending like? You expect a show like this to have great bending. Well, I can definitely say that it's fantastic. The fire bending has a great intensity you would expect from it. The water bending also looks superb. It's very fluid and moves like you would expect it to move in live action. Even the air bending and earth bending look phenomenal, although it would be rather easy to top whatever the hell this was. Even the sets and the way this world looks is phenomenal. Spine tingling. Even Momo looks adorable. He's got Baby Yoda written all over him, and I especially love the rivalry he has with Sokka. Even Appa looks adorable. He's like a ball of fluff. Now let us start talking about the characters, starting with our cue ball head avatar, Aang. I also like how we get to see Aang's relationship with his mentor, Gyatso, who in the original show we only got to see him in flashback for like 2 episodes. So I like how this show fleshes out their relationship, making it even more tragic when we get to see his inevitable demise. And let's talk about Aang himself, played by Gordon Cormier. And apologies and no disrespect to Noah Ringer. Seen interviews with him, and he seems like a really nice kid, and he's a huge fan of Avatar. And I feel like if he was given a better script and actually given some direction, he could have been a really great Aang. It's not his fault that his version of Aang was duller than dishwater, but I feel like Gordon Cormier has the edge. His version of Aang is very similar to the cartoon in that he's both positive and he's very childlike. But Gordon remembers to bring the tragedy in the character, and he really brings on the emotions, especially when Aang goes into the dark side of the Avatar. It's a very powerful scene, and I dare say it's just as emotional, if not more so, than it was in the cartoon. The show does remember that he's still a child, and there are definitely fun moments with him, including a scene where he's riding on an airball, which is straight out of the cartoon opening. And don't try to tell me that this isn't the same Aang from the cartoon when this scene exists and there are scenes of him playing with kids. I dare you to watch this scene and tell me that this isn't the same Aang from the cartoon. Just because they changed certain aspects of his character doesn't mean he isn't the same character. If there is one change about his character I'm a bit neutral on, it's the part of his backstory where he runs away. In the cartoon, Aang actually runs away because he's afraid of the responsibilities of being the Avatar. In the show, he runs away to clear his head. Although, in the show's defense, I feel like he would have died either way. If he had stayed, he would have died. If he had left, he would have died. So, I'm 50-50. Now let's talk about our favorite sibling duo, Katara and Sokka. Let's start with Sokka. Sokka, thank God, is actually really funny. He's actually the funny doofus from the cartoon, rather than the straight, always serious guy he was in the movie. My favorite joke with him is when they're leaving the Southern Water Tribe and they go on Appa. He's all like, you ain't getting me on that thing. And then they get him on Appa and he screams his head off, which feels like a moment ripped straight out of the cartoon. It's time for me to talk about his sexism being removed. Now, I get it. It was a very important part of his character in the cartoon. But it's not like his sexism is gone. It's still there. It's just toned down when compared to the cartoon. Now let us talk about Sokka's first love interest, Suki. She is innocent and sheltered from the outside world, mostly because of her overprotective mother. And she wants to see the outside world. If they do what season 2 of the animated show does and have her join the refugees, it would be a nice, let's say, continuation of that. What I like about this Asuki is that she pretty much is a character of her own. She's a goofball. And some of the things she does throws him off his game, and it did crack me up. I don't know if this counts as a controversial opinion, but I never found Suki in the cartoon to be a three-dimensional character with a personality. This Suki is bursting with personality, and I like the relationship she has with Sokka. Next up, let's talk about Katara. And she probably has some of the biggest changes of all the characters in the series. And this version of Katara has sparked a little bit of outrage amongst the fan base. Personally, I like this version of Katara. She starts out very shy and gentle, and yes, just like in the cartoon, she does have her outbursts, especially to Sokka. And she still is very nurturing, especially to Aang when he comes out of the Avatar state. She hugs him, comforting him at a time when he really needs it. And I really like the episode where she goes into the spirit world and she revisits her past. She's played by up-and-comer Kia Wentia, who was also in one of my favorite Netflix TV shows, and with an E. Now it's time for the best part of the show, Uncle Iroh and Zuko. And they are, hands down, the best thing in the show. But it's pretty hard to screw them up. Hell, even the M. Night Shyamalan film couldn't screw them up. Let's start out with Uncle Iroh, played by Paul Sun. And man, you could not have gotten a better actor to play this character if you tried. He pulls off both the funny and the tragic side of Uncle Iroh. All I know is that Mako would be proud of Mr. Kim. And next up, I want to talk about Prince Zuko. This literally feels like the Prince Zuko left off the page and sprung to life. And I really hope you enjoy him, and that's pretty much me going on without any spoilers. Unfortunately, now I have to talk about the problems I have with this show. Sorry, folks, I could only be so nice for so long. The biggest problem with this show would have to be its writing. It feels very exposition-y. Now, this isn't as bad as the movie where it feels like everything is being spelled out to you. There are scenes where it's visual and there's no exposition, but they're very few and far between. It often feels like the show has to say stuff that doesn't need to be said to you. Feels very annoying and unnecessary when it happens. And my second problem is the portrayal of Azula. I'm a bit, let's say, iffy on this version. Those who don't know, Azula was my favorite character in the cartoon. She was wickedly crazy. Not to say this version of Azula isn't. She can be crazy. Like, there is a scene where she manipulates a bunch of Fire Nation guys and watches them getting burned alive with such a psychopathic look in her eyes. You can literally see what she's feeling just by looking at it. And the part where she uses force lightning is also pretty wickedly cool. But I feel like she isn't crazy enough. When I see this version of Azula, I see a character straight out of Mean Girls, rather than the Azula from the cartoon. And seriously, what was the point of having May and Ty Lee if you're not going to do anything with them? If you know the cartoon, then you would know that May was kind of like this goth chick, and Ty Lee was a bubbly girl. And honestly, you would not know that just by watching them in this show alone. But I don't want to be too critical of these characters until I know where they're going with it. And my other problem is more of a nitpick. It's regarding Princess Yui. I like her character. It's the wig, honestly. It is so hilariously bad. When me and my friend were watching the show, I was laughing constantly, and I had to look away just to make sure I could take her seriously. But I really liked and enjoyed this show. It has its pros and its cons, and I'm hoping season 2 and 3 improves on many of the problems that season 1 has. I'm hoping the showrunners listen to both the positive and the negative criticisms this show has gotten. And I really hope that season 2 and 3 is even better than season 1. There's a lot to improve, but overall, I really had a blast with this show. I give it 4 stars. It would have been 5 if it didn't have those glaring issues. And if you want to see me go more in depth with this show, let me know that. And let me know how you feel about this show. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Are you somewhere in the middle? Let me know in the comments section below.